all want a more modern grid, a more resilient grid. And we've got these economic opportunities with AI to drive those modernization changes. We do believe that some investment needs to happen. We do believe we need more energy, but it's something that is consistent with energy growth that we've seen in the past. And it's definitely something that we're up to the challenge for.
This is EnergyCast, and I'm Jay Downhauer. Today we're talking about the benefits of AI to drive efficiency and the effort to ensure all that computing power is efficient itself. When AI first became ubiquitous a few years ago, a lot of folks predicted the end of the workforce as we know it. We've had a tenuous relationship with AI in my life, going back to the Terminator 40 years ago.
There was a nuclear war. A few years from now. It was the machine, Sarah.
I don't understand.
Defense network computers. They say it got smart. A new order of intelligence. Decided our fate in a microsecond. Extermination.
Yeah. But as I've said before, AI is a tool, just like a hammer or a personal computer. It still requires inputs, and what most people, including my guests, believe is that it will make us more productive, even leading us to perform better jobs in the future. To understand AI, let's discuss some of the basic terms. First, you have to feed AI's brain with information, what they call training. Then you begin to interact with it, what they call inference. My guest says these inference commands require less computing power and have become much more efficient. So you wouldn't have to swap all the hardware out if the AI becomes more sophisticated. Still, all these activities require considerable computing power. The International Energy Agency predicts consumption from AI, data centers, and cryptocurrency could exceed 1 million megawatt hours by 2026. That's roughly the energy consumption of Japan. And let's not forget how much additional demand is coming from the electrification of our vehicle fleet at the same time. These processes are using more and more graphics processing units, or GPUs, which my guest supplies to the world. He says the computing is much denser than traditional CPUs, but software and these greener GPUs are cutting energy usage by multiples with each generation. My guest today is Josh Parker, Senior Director of Sustainability for Nvidia, a company that is, well, Nvidia. This company, probably best known for its graphics processors, became the world's most valuable publicly traded company in June of this year. I'd been approached over the last few months by several companies with an AI technology benefiting the energy sector, but it's Nvidia who's behind all of them. I was interested to learn more about where these companies end and Nvidia begins. Does Nvidia have a stake in these companies? As they've grown, have they dabbled in energy technologies themselves, much like we've seen at Google? I was surprised at both how directly involved they are in the solution and agnostic to the solutions we ultimately see. You'll understand. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Josh Parker. We're here with Josh Parker, Senior Director of Sustainability for Nvidia. And Josh, back in 2019, I was working for Duke Energy, and one of the business development managers was telling me how they just set up a Bitcoin mining operation using graphics cards, and it was consuming 50 megawatts, which was enormous, especially for the footprint it was in. So the energy consumption for processes like AI and Bitcoin is high, and that's got to be a larger focus for a company like Nvidia, right?
It is. It's absolutely something that we're looking at, that we're conscious of, and we're trying to manage. And it's interesting that you use that example. It's really easy to misunderstand also the energy impact of AI and this accelerated computing platform because it's a new technology and it has different power requirements, but it also has different performance metrics as well. The compute performance is dramatically different from what we were seeing with traditional computing. It's a nuanced issue. Happy to get into it and talk about the big picture and about how it really plays out over time in terms of how much compute performance you're getting for the energy. But it is a much denser computing platform than traditional computing. So you do see significant energy in a smaller footprint than you did before.
I think AI, been hearing about it since the days of Terminator, right? But in the last couple of years, it's really taken hold. What changed? Why is AI happening now? And when did you start noticing it at Nvidia?
Well, AI has been, of course, something that tech companies have been dreaming of for decades. And it's been something that companies and individuals have been working on for that long as well. What happened recently was that with the launch of ChatGPT, we reached a threshold where the value of AI, and specifically generative AI and large language models, became apparent. And it was a unique circumstance where we had the right computing platform with accelerated computing. We had the right amount of data with the internet and all of the data that was able to be found there. And we had the right technical expertise to match them together in a way that led to this revolution where all of these technical factors came together in a way that you could actually start seeing real value coming out of this. And at Nvidia, we've been seeing this and expecting it for a long time. In fact, we started developing the software stack that we use, which we call CUDA, years ago. And it's been definitely a multi-year journey for us to lay the groundwork to be able to say, okay, we do have not only the software, we also have the hardware that enables this step change in terms of the value that we're getting from AI and generative AI.
That's very interesting. One of the things we were talking about was this competition for electricity from both computing processes, like you just described, and electric vehicles, which is not related, but you have these two major loads for electricity hitting the market at the same time. Is there enough energy out there to electrify all these sectors so quickly? They're coming on so fast?
I'll go back to something that our CEO said a few weeks ago when he was asked a similar question about, is there enough energy for AI? Is the demand really as high as people expect it to be? And Jensen said the forecasted energy consumption for AI is significant but overstated. And I think that's accurate. We're seeing a lot of really, you could say optimistic or pessimistic, depending on your point of view, but very large forecasts for the energy consumption for AI. And as you mentioned, for electric vehicles as well. Some of those forecasts, the ones that assume the biggest energy footprint, are some of the simpler models where they don't take into account very influential variables, including things like energy efficiency of the platform. So in the context of AI, that's built at Nvidia on our accelerated computing platform. And that platform itself is becoming dramatically more energy efficient with each generation. In fact, the current generation of products that we're shipping right now, called Blackwell, is 25 times more energy efficient than just our previous generation, Hopper. So just in the course of 2 years, we've reduced energy consumption for the same inference workload in AI by 96%. Dramatic improvements in energy efficiency. So if you want to get a real grasp on the total energy consumed by AI in the future, you need to take into account some of those more nuanced variables that aren't always considered, including energy efficiency. But to answer your primary question there, is there enough energy? There can be. We definitely have some work to do to be more efficient with the energy that we have, and also to expand, I think, the energy supply. There is a need for that because we are transitioning to an economy where we have more renewable energy. We all want a more modern grid, a more resilient grid. And we've got these economic opportunities with AI and with electric vehicles to drive those modernization changes and to drive those investments. So we do believe that some investment needs to happen. We do believe we need more energy, but it's something that is consistent with energy growth that we've seen in the past. And it's definitely something that we're up to the challenge for.
You mentioned that you're able to use less energy in doing AI commands. Is that really more of a software software-focused solution or a hardware? And the reason I'm asking that is, do you have to swap out all of the hardware that's already been installed?
So it's a mix. We're seeing energy efficiency improvements in our platform across the stack. That means at the chip level, at the data center level, and the data center cooling, in the software, even in the networking equipment within the data center. There are a lot of different levers that we're pulling to try to drive ongoing energy efficiency, and there's a lot of room left to go to drive additional energy efficiency. So it really is kind of across the spectrum, and we expect those trends to continue of really dramatic energy efficiency improvements. In terms of whether things need to be replaced, if you're looking at traditional computing, traditional data centers that are really central processing unit only versus the modern ones in accelerated computing, where we couple those previous CPUs with what we call GPUs that are specialized for mathematical processes like AI, that is a new architecture. Now, we do have some of our products that are compatible with existing racks and frameworks and so forth, but we also are seeing transition over to a custom new platform, new structure for workloads as well. So it really is a mix. We can help upgrade existing installations, and our products are all backwards compatible as well with our software. So you can run modern AI if you've got enough computing power on processors or GPUs that are several years old. They still work. It's just a question of how many computing resources do you need for those modern workloads.
Being in sustainability, when it comes to recycling the cards that have become outdated, I assume you would have to have a pretty robust recycling program, because I think there probably are some rare earth metals and things like that in the components.
Yeah, so there are some precious metals and other materials in our products that we definitely don't want to lose and we want to recover. Our large customers do have very advanced recycling programs where they're able to recover a lot of the materials from the products. But we're also seeing kind of ongoing durable utility for some of our older products as well. Even though the current generation is much more energy efficient and much more performant, older versions of our products can still be used for some of the lighter AI tasks. I don't know how familiar your audience is with how AI works, but on the front end, you have the training where you cram a bunch of data together and you develop this model that represents intelligence. That can take months of time to train these big frontier models like ChatGPT and Claude or Llama. And then once you have the model, interacting with it, that's the step called inference. And that's where you're basically submitting a query to the model. You're asking ChatGPT for directions or to educate you on a topic and so forth. And that interacting with the model doesn't require huge amounts of time or huge computing resources. It can often be done on platforms that are less performant. And in fact, we're seeing it be done on device now with laptops and phones and so forth. There's a lot of potential to continue to use even older generations of hardware for other purposes as well.
That's a good point. We've talked about what the demands of the hardware are and Nvidia's place in it and everything. Let's talk about ways that AI is directly helping the energy sector. Things like optimizing the grid, modeling new chemistries. What are you seeing?
There's a lot of reason for optimism when you apply AI to some of these challenges. We've been talking about how AI itself is becoming more energy efficient, but when you use AI as a tool for sustainability, it really is, to me, the most powerful tool the world has ever seen to help us with sustainability challenges. And some of the proof points that we've seen so far are focused on the energy sector. Two use cases that we've seen that are common. Number one is for intelligent devices at the edge, where AI is being used by some of our partners like Utilidata to integrate AI and help manage the grid in a more efficient way by having these custom AI compute points at the edge. And then another way that we've seen AI be deployed with the grid is for resilience and to do, for example, automated image recognition to identify places where maintenance may be required. And one of the national labs, Argonne National Lab, estimated that grid maintenance could be reduced by as much as 50% by using AI to proactively look for components that are susceptible to failure and send out maintenance to replace those. So huge potential both in terms of grid efficiency, also in terms of grid resilience, and also in terms of bringing on and managing the more complex generation footprint that we have with renewables, where of course it may change based on the time of day, and you may have a lot of different residential solar installations that you're trying to manage. It takes a lot more work to try to manage that type of a grid, and AI is fantastic at helping to minimize the efforts to make that change.
I've talked about this on the podcast, but when AI really started ramping up a few years ago, there was a lot of chatter about it affecting jobs and being a net negative disruptor. But I think that what we're now seeing is that it's a tool that can help humans be more productive, much like the PC was probably scary in the early 80s. And look what it's allowed us to do, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And the thing that you want to look for is really the pace of disruption. And if it is really sudden, then some of that disruptive activity can be painful. And it's something that we should be considering and try to manage. But when you see what has happened, even with the very rapid adoption of AI since ChatGPT came out, what we're seeing is a manageable deployment of AI in a way that really facilitates people to do their jobs. It helps us be more efficient and effective. I use AI myself regularly to help me with my job, to get educated on things. And that's what we're seeing so far, is that AI is becoming a very useful tool for people to adapt and to up level and to be more effective at their jobs. So over time, it's helping us to retool in ways that lead to more productivity and honestly better jobs as well.
So let's talk a little bit about Nvidia. I think everybody's probably wondering what's next for you guys. It's been honestly a miracle, your story over the last couple of years. You can't deny it. Are we expecting quantum computing? What is on the horizon for Nvidia in its core business?
Well, our mission statement is really to help solve the world's toughest problems through technology and computing. I think you're always going to see us at the frontiers of technology trying to figure out what else can we do with this to solve the world's hardest problems. And that's something that our CEO Jensen really embodies. He loves those big challenges, and he wants Nvidia to be a place where people come to do their life's work because we're tackling the hard things and finding through innovation, new ways to address them. So looking forward, what does that look like? AI is going to take a long time for us to fully realize the value of. We're just at the very beginning of this fourth industrial revolution where we're starting to take advantage of AI, but it's becoming better and better year over year. And if you're not kind of regularly interacting with these frontier models, you may not have realized that even over the past 6 months, the models have become so much more useful. And that's just, of course, large language models and chatbots, but it's doing a lot behind the scenes as well for manufacturing and digital twins and data analytics and so forth. There are lots of applications that I think will play out over decades plus as we really start to capture the full value of AI. You mentioned quantum computing. That absolutely is a space where there is a huge potential for a step change in computing and how technology drives productivity, because it will drive a huge new level of computing performance that's available and efficiency. And we are participating in that. The accelerated computing platform that we've developed is actually a fantastic tool to help us get to quantum computing. You need to do some modeling through this type of platform like we've got with accelerated computing to enable quantum computing. So the two go hand in hand, and we believe accelerated computing will be an enabler for that next big thing with quantum computing. So I'd say those two are big ones that are definitely one of them with AI already happening. And then quantum computing, of course, we've got some proof points, but that's a little more in the future. But it's definitely something that we're trying to facilitate with our technology.
Do you see Nvidia getting into sectors that aren't your core business? You know, Google was known for doing a lot of side projects, including renewable energy and new technologies like that. Do we see, just as large as it's getting, do we see getting into things like new energy technologies and things that are beyond what we've known them to be at this point?
This is one of the really fantastic things, and I think pretty unique about Nvidia, is that we are so focused on enabling others to solve hard problems with our technology that we can be a little agnostic about the specific routes that we go. We're trying to build a platform that's really adaptable and a software stack to support it that allows a company like Google to do its work better, but it also allows financial firms to do their work better. It allows carbon capture and storage companies to do their work better. As long as we're looking downstream and trying to understand where the potential applications of accelerated computing and AI are, we can make sure that our platform stays broad enough and performant enough to help all of our customers do whatever it is they need with their technology. So we do try to enable them, coming up with custom tools and so forth, but the platform itself on which all of this is built and the software stack is really agnostic to the types of applications. So it really is a good fertile building ground for anything that requires computing resources. And that's where we want it to be.
So Josh, what I'm hearing here is NVIDIA is being a lot more hands-on to help facilitate these applications that customers want to do, right? Don't you have a few examples of some customers that have become more efficient with their solution? Nvidia also helped them out directly.
That's right. Yeah. And that's one of the beautiful things about the space that we're in, is that it really is leading to the democratization of technology and computing, where you see companies that aren't at their core tech companies who are able to adopt our platform, and we help train them so that it can be useful to them. But it's becoming accessible, and it's also becoming useful across a broad spectrum of sectors, not just to tech companies. And one example of that is a very large electronics manufacturing company called Foxconn. They're opening a manufacturing facility in Mexico, and of course they want to be efficient and sustainable, and they used our accelerated computing platform and our 3D modeling software, Omniverse, to create a digital twin of this manufacturing facility. And they're projecting that because of that digital twinning and their goal to optimize the efficiency of the manufacturing plant and be as energy efficient as possible, they're going to reduce the energy consumption of that manufacturing facility by 30%. So just because they're deploying this technology on the front end, using AI, they're able to save, over the lifetime of that manufacturing facility, their energy bills and their associated carbon footprint is going to be 30% lower. So really encouraging and dramatic case studies that we're seeing in terms of AI's application to help drive those positive society impacts.
All right. Josh Parker, NVIDIA, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Jay. Thanks for the invitation. I always enjoy talking about these topics.
That was Josh Parker, Senior Director of Sustainability for Nvidia, a small mom-and-pop company headquartered in Santa Clara, California. You heard Josh mention they are actively working on quantum computing for AI. Earlier this week, they announced they were working with Google to design next-generation computing devices by simulating those designs using Nvidia's CUDA-Q platform. Once this technology finally hits the market, get ready for exponential improvements in the computers we see today. I want to thank Josh for his time, as well as John Rizzo at NVIDIA for setting this up. You can find plenty of pictures for this episode on energy-cast.com, as well as on Instagram at HostEnergy and Twitter X at HostEnergyCast. All guests are sent the raw and completed audio the week of release. So far, no complaints. Be sure to leave us a positive review on iTunes. That gets the word out. Music was produced by Sean Stroop at Stroop Loops. That wraps up episode 182. Be sure to join us next week. We learn how one company has pivoted from electric big rigs to a whole new world of possibilities for the power plant that makes them run. Until then, I'm Jay Downhauer. We'll see you next time.